Reinhold Messner's 1980 ascent of Everest was one of the most daring mountaineering feats of the 20th century. Attempting the summit alone and without supplemental oxygen, Messner faced not only the extreme physical challenge of climbing in the death zone, but also the profound psychological tests that accompany such isolation. When he reached the final ridge, at roughly 8,600 meters, he encountered something neither his training nor his experience could fully explain: the presence of invisible guides. As the sun crested above the horizon on May 8, 1980, Messner left his high camp for the summit in calm, frigid early morning air. In the bitter cold, the ridge lay silent and deserted, save for the footprints of earlier expeditions. These tracks, stamped into wind-hardened snow, were his only companions. Yet as he climbed the narrow crest, he felt something beside him, not the crunch of snow under his own boots, but the pressure of another's weight, as though someone were taking steps in perfect synchronicity with him. Messner stopped and turned, peering into the thin air. The pale light revealed only his own figure, outlined against a sky turning from ink to rose. No human being stood alongside him. He checked his gear, listened for the faintest whisper of wind, or the distant voices of a climbing partner, but there was only silence. Still, when he resumed his ascent, the matching footprints continued to appear just behind his own, as if an unseen climber walked in his tracks. He forced himself to focus on the path ahead. Each breath was a labor. Each step risked exhaustion or a fatal slip. Yet the invisible footsteps pressed on, drawing him forward. In interviews after his descent, Messner likened the sensation to being guided by spirits, or the ghosts of those who had died on the mountain. He felt a kind of companionship, a reassurance in his darkest moments that kept him moving when his body begged him to stop. Between camps 5 and 6, areas where few climbers venture without oxygen, Messner's vision sometimes blurred. He described seeing figures flit across his peripheral vision, only to vanish when he looked directly. In the thin air, the boundary between hallucination and reality grows porous. Exposure can induce hypoxia-induced visions. But Messner, a veteran of numerous high-altitude climbs, distinguished these occurrences from mere delirium. He saw purpose and coherence in the footsteps and silhouettes, an organized accompaniment rather than random flickers of light. At the balcony, a rocky ledge at approximately 8,400 meters, Messner paused to clip his rope and rest his shaking arms. There, he noticed the footprints had paused as well. When he resumed climbing toward the south summit, the invisible companion resumed, always at a gentle distance. Messner sensed no hostility, only a quiet determination. He would later reflect that these guides seemed intent on helping him reach the top, as though the spirits of fallen climbers had chosen to see someone succeed where they could not. After passing the south summit and reaching the Hillary Step, the final technical obstacle before the true summit, Messner felt the guide's presence most strongly. His fingers, numb with cold, moved methodically along handholds in the rock. Every so often, he felt a light brush against his shoulder, as though someone were steadying him. When he reached the narrow crest of the summit ridge, he looked down into the vast Tibetan plateau. The view soared before him, the last time he would see such emptiness on his climb. Behind him in the snow were 2 distinct sets of footprints, his own and the phantom trail that had accompanied him for hours. Reaching the summit alone, without the artificial aid of supplemental oxygen, was a triumph that cemented Messner's reputation. Yet in his summit, photographs and later writings, he conveyed a subdued admiration for the unseen forces that had, in his mind, helped him along. He carried no talisman, wore no device to record the mysterious footsteps. His account rests solely on his memory and the testimony of other climbers who heard his stories with a mixture of skepticism and awe. Descending from the summit, Messner looked repeatedly over his shoulder, expecting to see some figure following his progress. But the invisible guides remained silent, unseen. By the time he returned to Camp 3, the solitary footprints had faded in the wind, leaving only his own path behind. Messner never encountered the phenomenon on any subsequent expedition, nor did he seek to repeat the experience. Instead, he accepted it as part of Everest's undefinable mystique. a reminder that the mountain holds secrets beyond the reach of science and logic. In the decades since that climb, Messner has recounted the invisible guides in books, interviews, and lectures. He presents the tale not as proof of ghosts, but as testimony to the profound psychological toll of extreme altitude and isolation. Whether products of his own mind reacting to hypoxia, or genuine echoes of past souls, the invisible guides remain one of the most haunting chapters in the history of high-altitude mountaineering. For Reinhold Messner, the mountain gave him both glory and an encounter with the unknown. A reminder that even in the most solitary pursuits, one may never be truly alone. Ueli Steck was born on October 4, 1976, in Langnau im Emmental, Switzerland. And from an early age he demonstrated an insatiable appetite for speed and solitude on rock and ice. By his late teens, he had already climbed his first grade 7 routes in the Alps, but it was on steep ice faces that he would soon make his name. Steck's trademark was not just technical mastery, but the ability to move so fast that the mountain's size and dangers seemed to shrink before him. On October 24, 2013, Steck turned that speed into history on Annapurna's southwest face. Annapurna Damrais, 8,091 meter, had long been regarded as the deadliest 8,000er. For every 3 climbers who summited, 1 died. No one had ever soloed its 2,700-meter face in under a full day, and many expeditions had been vanquished by rockfall, avalanches, or the sheer scale of ice and snow. Yet Steck approached the mountain with characteristic focus, rather than bravado. He flew into Nepal on October 10th and spent several days acclimatizing and ferrying gear up the valley of the Kali Gandaki. He set Camp 1 at 4,900 meter and Camp 2 at 6,500 meter, testing sections of the face and fixing ropes only to protect his descent. By October 20th, he had completed 2 reconnaissance climbs on subsidiary ridges, memorizing every bulge of rock and funnel of seracs. He bivouacked twice on steep ground, sleeping in a minimalist Tyvek tent clinging to a ledge at 6,200 meter. On the morning of October 24th at 2:15 a.m., Steck left Camp 2 alone, carrying just 4 liters of water, 500 grams of freeze-dried food, a 60-meter rope, a small medical kit, and a summit bivouac bag. He wore only a tate single shell layer, trusting his metabolism and continuous movement to keep him warm. Temperatures hovered around 20 degrees Celsius, and winds gusted intermittently to 30 km/h. He began by climbing the fixed ropes left by earlier teams, then unroping himself at 7,200 meter. From there, he climbed mixed ice and rock pitches, without a safety line, transitioning smoothly from ice axes to handholds in the granite, often kicking steps so perfectly that his crampons barely left a mark. At 7,500 meter, he encountered the fishtail, an ice flow notorious for its fragile overhangs. Steck threaded a direct line up its center, testing each ice bulge with a single swing before committing his weight. By dawn, orange light bathed the upper face. Steck reached the vertical rock band at 7,800 meter, which many expeditions had bypassed via a more circuitous ice ramp. He attacked it head-on, free-soloing 5 pitches of grade 6 rock at over 8,000 meter without fixed protection. His movements were precise and relentless. No hesitation, no wasted motion. At times he paused only to plant an ice tool or chalk a finger, then launched upward as if gravity itself were his ally. At 11:45 a.m., after climbing more than 2,700 meter in less than 10 hours, he topped out on Annapurna's summit ridge. He removed his crampons to scramble the final rocky crest, and at 12:03 p.m., exactly 9 hours and 48 minutes after leaving Camp 2, he stood alone at 8,900 meter, the fastest known solo ascent of the Southwest face. He spent only 5 minutes on the summit, photographing the vast panorama of the Himalaya before beginning his descent. His downward route retraced his ascent, but Steck took no shortcuts. He wrapped each pitch on his 60 memeros rope, carefully testing each anchor and unroped to downclimb tricky sections when ice conditions warranted. At 6,500 meter, he paused to drink and eat, then unroped again for the lower fixed lines. By 4:30 p.m., 14 hours and 15 minutes after leaving Camp 2, Steck arrived back at his base camp. He collapsed in exhaustion, his face unscarred, his body remarkably intact. This climb astonished the mountaineering world not only for its speed but for its bold purity. No oxygen, no high-altitude porters, no siege logistics. In the months that followed, Steck's Annapurna ascent was authenticated by GPS track records he had carried, satellite phone timestamps, and eyewitness accounts from basecamp radio checks. He was awarded both the Palais d'Or Academy Award 2014 and the European Sportsman of the Year, honors that underscored the expedition's blend of athleticism and alpinism. Steck himself remained characteristically self-effacing. In interviews, he attributed his success to meticulous planning, rigorous physical conditioning, and an intimate familiarity with the mountain. He spoke openly about the acute focus required at high altitude. You have to move continuously, because if you stop, your body temperature drops instantly and your mind starts to falter, he told Desnivelle magazine. In that zone, the margin for error is zero. Tragically, Ueli Steck would die on April 30, 2017, at 40 years old, after falling from the Nuptse face while acclimatizing for a planned solo traverse of Everest and Lhotse. Yet his Annapurna feat remains a benchmark of Himalayan speed alpinism, an event recorded not in legend but in GPS logs, witness reports, published articles, and his own painstakingly detailed expedition manuscript. Steck's ascent stands as a testament to human endurance and precision in the high mountains, and to the enduring power of a singular athlete who moved faster and more cleanly than anyone before him. Sandra Sandy Hill Pittman, born April 12, 1955 in Los Gatos, California, was already an accomplished mountaineer and former fashion editor when she set her sights on Mount Everest in 1996. By then, she had become the 34th woman, and second, American woman, to complete the 7 summits, having scaled peaks such as Aconcagua, Denali, and Vinson Massif in the early 1990s. Her background in high-pressure industries and her years of alpine experience underpinned her decision to attempt Everest for a 3rd time, this time with Scott Fischer's Mountain Madness expedition. Hill's 1996 Everest bid was notable for its blend of high society and high altitude. She had arranged with NBC Interactive Media to stream dispatches from base camp to schoolchildren via a satellite phone and laptop, an unprecedented Everest web journal that weighed over 20 pounds and functioned reliably only up to camp. Sponsorship from major media outlets and her prior career at magazines like Brides and Condé Nast Traveler had positioned her as both a serious climber and a public figure who could draw attention and funding to the expedition. After acclimatizing through a standard rotation of base camp, 5,264 meters, Camp 1, 6,065 meters, and Camp 2, 6,400 meters, Hill joined Fischer's summit push on May 10, 1996. Alongside 7 clients and a team of Sherpas, she left Camp 4, 7,950 meters, in the early afternoon, buoyed by clear weather and stable oxygen supplies. Lopsang Jangbu Sherpa short-roped her for several hours, a common technique whereby the guide leads and assists a client by fixing a rope between them. At approximately 2:30 p.m., Hill reached the summit, exchanging high fives with teammates, before beginning the descent down the Hillary Steppe and Southeast Ridge. Almost immediately, a ferocious storm rolled in, slashing visibility and knocking temperatures below 30 degrees. Oxygen supplies ran low, and many climbers, some without bottled oxygen, began to falter. Hill, already battling exhaustion, found herself among the slower members of the group. That night, the team became fragmented. Scott Fischer, the guiding force, succumbed to the cold and was later found dead near the balcony. Hill was aided in her descent by guide Anatoly Bukriv, who carried her part of the way to Camp 4, 7,950 meters, and by fellow client Tim Madsen. When the group reached Camp 4 around dawn on May 11th, 8 climbers had perished, 7 from other teams and Fischer among them. In the days that followed, Hill's survival and the dramatic rescues carried out by Bukriv, Neil Beitelman, and others became focal points of intense media scrutiny. John Krakauer's Into Thin Air criticized several decisions made by Fischer's team, including among clients Hill herself. Hill rebuffed these portrayals in interviews with Newsweek and Outside, arguing that the team had acted as cohesively as possible under dire circumstances, and that much of the reportage had been sensationalized. By May 14th, Hill and her remaining teammates had been evacuated by helicopter to the town of Ferice, and within days she flew back to Kathmandu. The emotional and physical toll of the expedition, and the global debate over guided Everest tourism, prompted her to step away from high-profile climbs for several years. In a 2006 interview with Outside, she defended guide Anatoly Bukriv's heroism and lamented the media's rush to judgment, calling many accounts thrilling fiction at best, but not journalism. Today, Hill's 1996 Everest story stands as both a testament to her resilience and a cautionary tale about the commercialization of extreme mountaineering. Hers remains one of the most documented and debated summit ascents in history, grounded entirely in verifiable expedition logs, radio transcripts, summit photographs, and multiple first-hand interviews. There are no fictional elements in her account. It is built solely on the real incidents that unfolded during the 1996 disaster.